Sleepy Joe, I don't see him doing
Yeah.
much. He spent a lot of time out there on the beach. He spent a lot
Yeah.
of time at the ice cream parlor. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, like it's so interesting watching where we are as a nation right now. I think I had a interesting take recently with the whole. Oh, sorry about that. With the whole I think the nation as a whole right now are having an issue with fatherlessness. It's
Oh
it's
man.
it's it's become such a epidemic in our country. And as I
Mhm.
was watching and listening a little bit to the whole Diddy situation, that's the thought that just keeps ringing through my mind. Children are being forced to make sacrifices because parents didn't do what they were supposed to do. Whether
Yeah.
they were, for think about this, right? For 20 years, you have your child with you, and you could go to school. You could, like at some point, a child goes from being an infant to being 7 or 8 years old, where they need you less. And for
Mhm.
20 years, you kind of just sat back. And so some people, they hope their children become athletes. They hope their children become rappers. And you put your children in situations that if you were financially stable, if you were in a home where a strong male presence was who was leading in a biblical way, many
Mhm.
things would not happen. I heard Usher say something recently that when he was 13 years old, his parents just gave him to Diddy to live for a year. You're like, you know what I mean? Like that's unbelievable, and
Right.
end up having these children being exposed to people that they never should have been exposed to just for the fact that they're able to come and support you with a dollar. I think it's a it's a as I'm watching this, that's all I keep thinking about, the travesty of fatherless homes right now.
Man, I agree 100%, especially in the Black community, because, for all our talks about racism and all that other kind of stuff, we don't really address the bigger issue. The prejudice stuff is external. What's internal is having a core set of values, having true mentorship, having a true leadership, and being taught principles for life, how to become a better man, how to become a better woman. And so, in the Black community, we yes, we're very talented. I mean, you put Black people anywhere, we can dominate. You just call it what it is. But when you fail, first of all, when the system is set up to destroy the family unit, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but have you ever heard of Alice Bailey?
Alice Bailey now.
Okay, remind me, I've seen some information on it.
Hmm.
But back in the 1920s, she came up with this agenda. It's like a 10-point plan, a 10-point agenda
Hmm.
on basically how to kick God out of people's lives, out of
Hmm.
America.
Hmm.
And it's a 10-point plan. It's deep, fairly detailed, but it's simple enough. You can just rewrite through it and you
Hmm.
understand it. But one of the things she wanted to do was destroy not just the black family, but she wanted to destroy the family unit.
Okay.
You do that, you take God out. Remove God as the foundation.
Hmm.
You start messing with sexuality,
Yeah.
and a host of other things, but you start devaluing and demoralizing us, it becomes very easy to change the entire culture.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I'd also posted another video maybe a couple of weeks ago from a former KGB agent.
Hmm.
That video was from 1980s when he was being interviewed, and he sat down, and it's probably a 13, 14-minute video. He sat down and told the interviewer how to really destroy a nation such as
Hmm.
America. What
Hmm.
you do is you take like it's like 15, 20 years.
Hmm.
You change the culture by implementing certain ideals.
Yeah.
Okay. And every 5 years you see this, and every 5 years you see that, which is basically what happens with the 1960s,
Yeah.
with the sexual revolution, so on and
Hmm.
so on. Pre the civil rights movement, for example, the blacks were very successful.
Yes.
Fathers was in the home,
Yeah.
mothers were in the home. You know about all that.
Yeah.
Before Martin Luther King came on the scene,
Hmm.
which I'm thankful for a lot of good work he's done. But I've been
Hmm.
learning some fresh material. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Nah.
you
Yeah.
know, but
It,
yeah,
it,
go ahead.
yeah. Nah. It's been interesting, even like trying to I listened to a little bit of Boyce Watkins. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. But
Mhm.
he's like, so I try my best to have two competing ideas, kind of wrestling around at times. And
Mhm.
something that he talks about a lot is that the same thing that you're just saying, that like the although the integration was great in a lot of ways, it took away the desire for ownership, but that African Americans had prior to that.
Right.
When at times when we were not allowed into the country clubs, we had to build our own. We had to have our own electricians. We had to have because they either you had these people who were capable or they
Hmm.
wouldn't get done. But now that we have this, I sit back and I think a lot about why the Cosby Show was such a success in the early '90s. You saw Bill Cosby in the neighborhood a lot of times with the heads and the people who were the brain trust. They were still on the block.
Right.
They were
Right.
still in the neighborhoods because of redlining and things like that. Right now, a lot of the people who are the smartest, who are the most intelligent, are just fleeing the inner cities. So those who are the most intelligent, the most capable, because the environment is so hostile, there's no place for them to stay and to actually want to make a change.
Right.
It would have been great, my thought and my mindset to be able to be part of the redevelopment of a city, of a nation. But as we're seeing right now, that whether it's in Chicago, is in New York, there are people who are going to school full time, getting degrees, getting jobs as lawyers and things like that, just so they can give bail reform that someone can commit a crime and they not have to go to jail until after they're convicted, three
That's
months,
sad.
6 months, and it's producing a lot of recidivism as we're seeing, like the reporting of crime is becoming lower, but the people who are watching are realizing 100%. You don't deploy the National Guard to the NYC subway system if there's no increase in crime. You know what I mean? So
Real talk, Richard. Hey man, you own it, brother. Preach. No, you're 100% correct. Go ahead.
I'll please you can go ahead. I'll keep you muted for just a moment.
Okay. No, I agree 100%. This is the world we're living in. I think it's manufactured. First of all, I grew up on the Cosby Show, so I absolutely enjoyed them. I will watch that show today. They need to bring back that type of content right now because our world needs it. But also, um, in New York, when you talking about bringing in the National Guard, which was a telltale sign to me of the MA word. I don't know if I could use it here, but if you know what I'm saying, in a government standpoint, the MA word, in order to control cities, I'll put it like that. Um, Real quick, back on the fatherless in the homes, right quick, is the black man being out in the prison. See, at our church, I was a part of. We had a prison ministry before COVID. And so I had a privilege. I had opportunity. My dad had taught me and
Amen.
another minister, how to do that. And so we, for about 20 years, over 20 years, actually, we was out there teaching. And so we had a host of guys. And one of the things they love, we used to have waiting lists every year, waiting lists. If the program started off, you had to stay in the class for a year. Then that changed and they said 6 months. But every year we had a waiting list because people enjoyed the messages we was teaching. We teaching them from the Bible, but we also related it to real world activity. A lot of these guys wish they had, some of them have told me they wish they had a father like me, like that I have, you know, um, because a lot of these cats did not grow up with a father figure or a strong father figure in the home who could guide them, teach them morals, teach them good work ethic, teach them how to be a man, how to treat a woman, all those types of things. And so it was refreshing to hear that God wanted them blessed with this and that so they can become successful. Some of those guys had children and they was being good, they was learning how to be good fathers from behind bars. Okay. And some of them had the privilege of getting out, and some of the guys live in different areas of the country. They've come to back to this city, come to our church to say thank you. We've had wives call our church, leave a message, and talking to our pastor about thank you for what you did for my husband. Why? Because if we don't, the man, I know they say a happy wife, happy life, something like that. And I believe in that. But God set up the order for the chain of command I'm talking about between for the man, not only to cover, but also to be the foundation. We're supposed to help stabilize a society, starting with our own personal lives, number one, and then our household, which could also translate into the entire community and the nation. But I believe there's a concerted attack against that ideal. so that our young men can grow up and be aimless and be taught by the wrong individuals, which we're seeing. People are very violent. They have no compass, no more compass, no guidance, no direction. And now a lot of people are making money off of these kids in prison, as well as kids killing each other off. So yes, our future looks very, very bleak under the current circumstances.
Now, it's interesting too because as we weaken the man and the father figure here in this country, those who are in other nations are strengthening. You know, like
Oh man, yeah, 100%, Richard. When I listen to Andrew Tate, do you listen to him sometime?
yes, I do.
Yeah, I don't agree with Andrew Tate's lifestyle overall, but a lot of what he says has to do with the traditional male from a basic standpoint. They attacked him for that. He was telling men, be men. You go to some of these Muslim countries, you go to Russia, you go to China, you see, especially most of the time, you actually see them in a wartime setting, where they're training for battle, soldiers. You don't hear none of this patsy stuff that you hear in America. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's and more and more, you know, like it's as we're looking to move into the future. I think the attacks against men are going to become even greater, whether it's attacks profession. Like think about it, right? Like someone can work their entire life. You get into a consensual relationship. You speak to the person, whatever. You send the person a bad message, and they can ruin your career. You know what I mean? So men are being forced to move into to these like sheepish roles in society because they're afraid of these things happening. I think at the same time, like we're watching the demolition of small businesses. And I
Right.
think that many young men are seeing more and more that the idea of college that it doesn't work for them. There was a recent poll that came out stating that young men are becoming more and more conservative, and young women are becoming more and more liberal in
Mm-hmm.
their nature, and it's natural. You know, it moves a lot towards us as men. You know, men have a there's a natural consequence to our actions in general,
Right.
whether it's physical, confrontation or whatever. There, we understand ahead of time that if you say something wrong, if you get out of line, there are consequences to your actions. And but at the same time, the rules are not being implemented the same way. So it's going to be interesting, like you said, what the future holds. I think the family structure is one that is working its hardest right now. You know, I'm surrounded by a young woman, and my wife who is realizing more and more what it means to be a biblical woman, and I'm just impressed by her every single day. You know, like when when we had our child, you know, it was she was working and everything, and then she took a chance to be home, and
Mm-hmm.
then more and more you looked at it, she was like, why would I rush outside to push my son back into daycare, to people. A lot of times I'm not sure if you feel it, but I'm a big black man, right? So I walk down and I can see the looks in people's eyes a lot when they see me, you know what I mean? And my thought oftentimes is, why am I dropping off my child to someone who generally outside of that building wouldn't speak to me? So I think it can kind of circle back toward what we're talking about with the Martin Luther King issue and things like that. There's a reasonable stance that integration has drastically affected the lives of African Americans, of people in general,
Right.
just because that the idea of the family, which was the building block of society, has now been turned over to government. Whether it's the welfare, whether it's stimulus checks or anything, like everybody is looking more and more for the government to grow and to be able to take care of them on a more and more rapid basis.
Right. No, I agree 100% again, Richard. Like I said, we think a lot alike. That's why I was drawn to you. Um, I think it's a concerted effort. I think it's intentional. I think there's a big play at hand. I believe it's, and I think you mentioned this a little earlier. There's a bunch of little things happening, bunch of small parts. I'm not a big time cooker at all. Do you cook? Okay. So when you putting something together, you got to, depending on what you're going to cook, depending on how many people you're cooking for, you got there's a
Yeah.
bunch of steps,
Yeah.
you know. And then when you're putting certain foods together, it's bunch of mixtures and ingredients you have to put together, all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
so that you can get to this one big occasion
Yes.
that may or may not last for 30 minutes to an hour. So it
Yeah.
could take you a couple of days
Mhm.
to plan for 1 hour.
Yes.
And so that's what I think has been happening with the country. Going
Mhm.
back to, that's one of the analogies I personally use as well, is
Mhm.
the frog in the boiling pot analogy you used
Yeah.
earlier too.
Mhm.
That's what I said. I believe our country, especially probably for the last 50, 60 years, have been that frog. The people have been the
Yeah.
frog in the boiling pot,
Yeah.
and they've been adjusting it over and over and over. Every decade, you see some type of change, some type of the temperature increases.
Mhm.
A lot of people have been lulled to sleep,
Yeah.
and which is pushing us somewhere. So I think the most important question then is the where. Well, one of the
Yes.
most important questions is,
Yeah.
where are we actually being pushed to? Because
Yes.
what we're dealing with is a lot of effects
Yeah.
right now.
Uh-huh.
The question is what's the cause?
Yes.
What do you actually intend to do here?
Yes.
I have heard, I won't say his name, so
Mhm.
our video will get banned on it, but
Uh-huh.
um, somebody that's known as JB
Yeah.
told us 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and I had that video.
Mhm.
He told us what his plan was. He said it in a nutshell.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, Bush Sr. said it back some 30 years ago
Mhm.
in one of his speeches. Clinton said it too. You
Wow.
know, it begins with an N,
Mhm.
another word, a W, another
Yeah.
word, you know. And
Yeah.
so what they want to do is, in my opinion, and I know we're not, this is not necessarily a church session or like that,
Yeah.
but I think it's connected,
Yeah.
is that what we're seeing is an anti-God agenda
Yes.
playing out before our very eyes.
Mhm.
We're living in the days I believe a lot of people wanted to live in to see unfold, and for those of us who are awake to it,
Mhm.
it's very uncomfortable. Number one, it's
Yeah.
called
It
what it
is.
is. Richard, I never thought, even though I grew up learning about the end times, Jesus coming, all that kind of stuff, I never imagined observing these
Mhm.
events
Yeah.
from the perspective I've been observing it. I've really learned from the political spectrum.
Mhm.
I have learned more in the last 3 years than previously.
Yeah.
So this is we're dealing with something, though on its surface it looks like it's attacking black people,
Mhm.
it's attacking police, it's
Yeah.
attacking the middle class, it's
Mhm.
attacking the upper class, all this other stuff. The question is well, I think what we should all understand is this: all of us are on
Mhm.
the menu.
Yeah.